People would assume that you've walked away with $1 billion.
I wish. Again, it's a bit like the Hailey Bieber question. Somebody asked me today, oh my God, Hailey Bieber got a billion. Well, you don't actually know how the structure was of the deal, and everything's reported as glossy. That's a great brand, and I actually purchased some of their products a few times, so she's done a great job.
Shelley Sullivan, welcome to the Stella Podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's really lovely to meet you. We're at halfway through 2025 today.
Already, it's quick.
I mean, and you have had a very, very big year. Kicked off with the bangs, certainly. Back in February, you sold your business with a valuation of $1 billion. Yes. As we're sitting down a few months after all of those headlines, how are you feeling?
Look, I'm a little bit more relaxed than what I was when I was running MCo. I'm still very much a fan of the brand and watching and cheering along from the sidelines. But running a business that grew so quickly was a lot. It was exhilarating and exciting, but at times exhausting. So I'm definitely enjoying a bit of a break.
Let's go back a little bit. Before you became a beauty brand powerhouse and built one of the biggest female-led business exits in Australian history, you were already running your own show. You launched a modelling agency. You were only in your 20s. A lot of people in their 20s are still figuring out what they want to do with their life. What was it that drove you to have that entrepreneurial spark even then?
So when I left school, a lot of my friends were doing a gap year and then running off to university, and I really wanted to create something that was my own. So having my own business was something that I always wanted to do. So when I left school, I was putting together fashion shows and fashion parades and model search competitions. And a lot of the girls who were winning Miss Bondi and East Coast Beach Girl, we were giving to some of the top agencies in Australia. And back then, these agencies were quite big, and there wasn't an agency that really offered personalised service and a boutique kind of offering to talent. And because I was roughly the age of the talent, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to own my own modelling agency and really look after the girls instead of being a huge agency, be able to give the girls that one-on-one advice. So that was what inspired me to start my own agency back in the day. And I was 21 when I started that. And I really had no idea what I was doing in business, but just knew I wanted to do something that was my own, and I was very passionate about helping women, and that's how the model management company began. So I created that agency and ran that for about 10 years, and it grew from 1 talent to 1,800 talent within a couple of years, and it was spanning from editorial models to commercial models to Lollipop's children's modelling agency. So that became a bit of a behemoth in itself. So after about 8 years thinking, look, it's a lot managing all these people, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to get into the world of beauty? And I was inspired to get into beauty from listening to what my models wished they had in their beauty bags that the luxury brands weren't providing. So I was kind of running the modelling agency and started ModelCo within the same time. So every business I've had, I always started before I moved on to the next one, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. But it's that classic line about seeing a gap in the market. You saw the gap in the market because you were there among the target audience. Going back to 21, deciding to launch that business. So when I say 20s, I mean at the very, very literally beginning of the 20s. What was the reaction from people in the industry? Did people go, oh, you're too young for that, Shelley, just go and work for that other agency, or take a bit more time?
When I was 21, I started my own modelling agency and I ran that for 8 years. So I was about 28, 29. And it was that time where I was looking at models and talent. I remember building relationships with, the Kylie Minogues and Elle Macphersons by having my talent at Fashion Week and listening to what celebrities and model wish they had. That was my inspiration to start ModelCo, the beauty brand. So I wanted to start the ModelCo brand because I knew that what women wanted in their beauty regime that all the luxury brands weren't providing. So back in the day, there was Maybelline, Rimmel for the mass, and there was Estee Lauder Clinique and some of those brands, but there wasn't a cool niche brand that offered quick fix solutions. So I was inspired to launch the first ever tan in a can and heated eyelash curler. Now, the heated eyelash curler was inspired by my models in the agency, and that was the first product I had. And that was because a lot of my models were coming in with blow-dry burns on their eyelids. And I said, what's with the burns on the eyes? I said, we want to have curly lashes, and we get these clamper curlers and we blow dry them. And I was like, wow, surely there's got to be an apparatus or a tool that can curl women's lashes in an instant without the harm of the heat. That was what inspired me while I had the modelling agency to have the heated eyelash curlers like a part-time kind of business. And that catapulted the ModelCo brand that was just born out of being a modelling agency and a one-product wonder into a global brand overnight. And then a lot of the international retailers, Space NK, Sephora, David Jones, everybody who stocked the lash one said, wow, you're selling like millions of dollars this one SKU. What else have you got in the pipeline? And then again with the models from the modelling agency, they inspired me to create the first ever tan in a can, which truly transcended convention, changed the way women tan forever. And that came about because my models were coming in with orange legs and, they were using a gel tanning brand. I'm like, wow, if you can put tan in a can, could you imagine how you'd be able to airbrush skin to perfection? So I went on this a mission to put tan in a can. If you can have Rexona in a can and WD-40, why can't you put tan in a can? So I knew at that point, by having products that were quick fix, multi-solution and something different, that it was a recipe for success, and that was how the ModelCo brand was born. And then I sold the agency and then went fully into the cosmetics world.
So lots of different things there. I'd like to unpack and do a bit of a deep dive on some of those things. So between the heated lash curler and tan in a can, what was the first product that you launched
heated
at
eyelash
ModelCo?
curler.
So as you say, it was born out of observing things. I mean, burns literally caused by hairdryer. I mean, that's pretty wild, isn't it? Thanks to you. This no longer happens, hopefully, with any women that want the curled lashes. So you've launched your modelling agency. You're now starting to branch out into what we know would go on to become a huge business. But in those early days, where do you begin when you have an idea, you've seen what's happened, you see that there's a gap in the market for a heated lash curler, you are thinking about something that could solve that problem. Shelley, there's a lot then to get that onto shelves, even if you couldn't have foreseen where you and I would be sitting talking about it almost 25 years later. How do you get that made? How do you then convince people to try it? What's the sort of short version of get that idea in Shelley Sullivan's brain onto shelves?
Look, there's not a magic recipe or everybody be doing it. I think having a vision, being crystal clear with what the outcome is and being extremely tenacious is something that you have to have. Having a no is not an option attitude. So with the tan in a can, I was told you can never put tan in a can. And I was like, if you can put Rexona in a can and WD-40 in a can, surely we can put DHA and a mixture to spray. So having the thought of thinking outside the square, thinking about another delivery system that isn't in the beauty business, talking to manufacturers, getting people to believe in your dream and people believing in your visual concept is really hard. But if you've got a vision and you know that it's going to work, I had the concept. I also then talked to the retailers at the same time to make sure that my crazy idea was actually going to be a saleable concept. And so I always had a strategy of dreaming up an idea and talking to the commercial retailers to see is there a sales opportunity. So I didn't just have an idea and run off and do it. There was always a business plan. Whatever you think it's going to cost, double it, if not more. But because I had the safety of running one business, I could afford to take a few risks with the second business. So I've never ever run one business at a time. I've always had the big idea, then a little idea, and then the big idea became a little idea. So it's a combination of having a little side project that ended up growing into a huge financial success, but making sure that you've got a network of people, great team around you, I think is always key, and people who share in your vision.
When did you first know with ModelCo, as it was at the time, that a product was literally about to fly off the shelves and had really moved to the point where in time, of course, as you say, you would know that you were on to enough that you could then walk away from the first business and that the second business would actually become the empire?
Well, it was a bit of a process of testing the market. So because of my contacts in the beauty editor world and fashion world, I used to look down the porthole of fashion, see what was coming in, and then test it in the beauty world. So back in the day when I had Tan in a Can, there wasn't social media. So we would do a small distribution and it'd end up in the magazines, in Bazaar, Vogue, so on and so forth. We could see with the editorial uptake and the sales spike from the editorial, from back many, many years ago, we'd know straight away if we were onto a winner. So throughout the journey of my career in beauty, there's been a lot of winners, but there's also been ones that haven't gone as well. But we would know relatively quickly from taking a small point of distribution to shelf, looking at the editorial and the sales, whether or not we're onto a winning product.
I want to ask you a bit as we keep talking about launching a business and then scaling it. But before we get into that, are there moments that stand out when you think about first trialling a product that you were thinking about on one of your models, say in the modelling agency, and then as the business grew, to the level of then product testing, where you have got people doing that in, I imagine, labs and testing facilities and all sorts of things? Is there something that you always remember whenever a business scales? It will be, well, this multimedia empire started as a newsletter on someone's laptop at their desk. Do you have one of those comparisons to something that was in the really early days as opposed to what it would become 5, 10, 15 years later?
Well, I remember when we launched Tan in a Can, we sponsored Bar Bazaar at Fashion Week, and Elle Macpherson and Kylie Minogue were there, and they loved the products, and their word around the endorsement from makeup artists and celebrity was really a big thing for me. Without that endorsement and belief in me and the brand, we wouldn't have taken off. So back in the day, what was really important was the endorsement piece. But I would have to say right up to the very end, I'm very deep in product development. Whether or not it was one product or 1,000 products, whether it was $1 or 100 million, I'm still very much in work with Jess and the team at MCo. I built a huge team of great people that have gone on to work with the business today. But I've very much had my hand and strategy within the mixing pot, because I know what women want before they want it. So I never let go of that. That was always something I was very passionate about.
And also, as you say, when you were first launching the business, there was no social media, but those relationships that you had nurtured and facilitated, and that trust that you had with people like Elle and Kylie, it's also a bit of a precursor, of course, to where we are today in the culture, where not only celebrity ambassadors, but also influencers, that was something that you were ahead of the curve
did a lot for us as well with MCoBeauty. So we've been fortunate enough to work with many people that have been fans of the brand, men, women, from 16 to 80 years of age, we have fans of the brand. One thing that I learned with MCoBeauty was there is never one face of the brand. The consumer is the face of the brand. So we try to encourage our customers to share their looks and become the face of the brand. So with the world of social media today, we have thousands of people that post our products a month, and that's because we're proud of women and the way they look, and we want them to share their looks. So yes, we've had Hailey Bieber, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Celeste Barber. Along the way, we've had some fantastic ambassadors for the brand that have propelled the awareness of the brand, but really it's our customers that are the face. Yeah.
A name change can be a risky undertaking. Can you tell a little bit about what the strategy, the thinking, the process was behind the transition from ModelCo to MCoBeauty?
So there is never a name change. There were two separate brands. So I started off with ModelCo. ModelCo was a premium brand that had quality tanning products and colour products. So ModelCo was positioned premium. Our latest collaboration before the launch of MCo was with Karl Lagerfeld. So that was in Douglas. It was in 3,000 stores throughout the world. It was with Nordstrom in the US. So they're two still separate brands today, and they still exist. ModelCo didn't turn into MCo. MCo is a diffusion sister brand of ModelCo. So ModelCo was the brand that started the world of beauty for me. It was very challenging in the premium market, and towards the end of the collaboration with Karl Lagerfeld, I saw that there was a huge gap in the masstige market up against Rimmel, Revlon, Maybelline, and I said, let's start a new brand, the sister brand to ModelCo, that offers high-end products at a luxe for less price.
Love to talk to you about this masstige demographic. It's been so such a powerful audience to tap into, really underserviced demographic at that time when you saw that opportunity for MCo Beauty. The supermarket aisle,
Yes.
now where people
And
go
COVID
to get
helped too.
their beauty products.
Yeah.
Talk us through a little bit about that when you first were making that decision to capitalise on women that are walking up and down with their trolley, suddenly moving into getting their beauty products there.
So it was in conjunction. So I launched MCo Beauty before COVID because I saw that there was a niche. I'd spoken to masstige retailers, Woolworths, Chemist Warehouse, Big W, in the Australian market, and there was a huge gap within that mass area. So I said, what if I created a brand that had high-end products at a luxe for less price? And that was a huge gap. Some of their masstige brands weren't performing. They needed a lift in their category. And obviously they'd seen I had a track record of success with ModelCo. So I launched the MCo Beauty brand, and we launched with maybe a dozen products, 12 products. And those 12 products drove more revenue than some of the brands with 100 SKUs. And why did they drive that? Because that they offered something different, that they offered more of a luxury offering that you could get in the premium department stores and Sephora's of the world. And so that really started to tick. And I knew that with the economy, women wanted quality products at a quarter of the price. So I knew, because I'd already I'd already had a relationship with our premium retailers, if I could do more volume, we could bring down the price and pass the savings on to the customer. So that was how the MCo Beauty brand, that was how the MCo Beauty brand was born. And then it just catapulted overnight in conjunction with COVID was huge for us because everything was shut except Woolworths. So what was 12 pegs was 60 pegs, and we couldn't keep product on the shelves because the quality of the product was great, the price point was perfect, people still wanted to look great in those times of stress, and it was just right time, right place, and a lot of luck at the timing. And we had the social media turning, and we were a primary supplier to Woolworths. So we had all employees working 100% of the time, where most other brands were working cutback hours. We were innovating and putting products on the shelf and listening to what our customers wanted. So it really was a combination of hitting the market, COVID, luck. It was like the magic recipe.
Everything, as you say, was in the right place at the right time, because a lot of conversations that might begin with the sentence, we launched just before COVID, unless we're talking about something like MCo Beauty or someone was launching an alternative to Zoom back in February 2020, and we all know what happened the month after that. I mean, most businesses that launched during that time did go under.
Yeah.
So for you...
It's the opposite.
The absolute opposite. Do you ever think about what would have happened if COVID hadn't happened? As you say, it was one of a few different factors.
I think the brand would have succeeded. I mean, the masstige industry was crying out for something new. A lot of the brands, we weren't there to take market share from our consumers. We were there to traffic, to bring a new footfall into the store. So where consumers were shopping department stores and beauty department stores, we were traffic shifting into the grocery environment. So our competitors in that environment would still have their customers. We were bringing an entirely new customer to the category. That's why the retailers were so happy with us, because we were bringing new footfall. We weren't there to kind of take from Maybelline, Rimmel and our competitors. So it was just a different offering for our mass retailers that they hadn't experienced before. The brand has launched in the US and doing extremely well in Target and Kroger, and it's soon to launch into the UK. So I would say that the MCo Beauty brand is the first disruptor brand in the masstige category, and that's why it's successful.
And of course, a core component of that aspect of it being a disruptive brand has been the fact that it emulates prestige products and reinvents and recreates them in an accessible way for a mass audience. You've been called, Shelley, the queen of dupes. Let me ask you about that, and how do you navigate that line from like a legal perspective?
So it's interesting because really only 20-30% of the range have got dupe factor. However, a big portion of the sales is driven by products that look and feel like a luxury products, because women want to pull that little bit of luxury that looks like something that they can't afford. So the inspiration behind dupes was actually from our customers. They came and said, we wish we could buy a Tom Ford foundation with the qualities and the hyaluronic acid and the skincare, but we don't want to pay the high-end price. So we started to talk to our manufacturers. We had different brands and products that our customers wanted, and we said, look, if we could provide something that looks and feels the same but is actually different, our customers would go for it, and it really did work. So what was important to our customers is they want to feel like the packaging's the same. So there's products that we have on the range that look and feel very, very similar to products on the market, and they've been some of our biggest sellers. There's a fragrance spray we've got foundations, lip products. We had intellectual property advisors the entire way along. We made sure that we weren't infringing on anyone's trademarks along the way. Where a brand may have thought that we were doing that, we got the right advice. The brand does less dupes today from what they used to, but some of the core brands' products are the biggest selling products, and that's because women want to feel like they've got a bit of luxury at a quarter of the price. And the formulas are they're not like for like. So it looks and feels like this, but it's actually not. But it's so similar you can't tell the difference on the payoff on the skin or the lips.
Every time a brand launches in a new market internationally, you will see different trends among consumers. Things that really resonate with one country don't necessarily resonate, or something that you might have thought was not one of the superhero products, suddenly you can't keep up with demand. Moving into other markets, what are some of the biggest trends that you've seen in terms of female consumers differing to consumers here in Australia, if at all, or is beauty the universal language? I
think beauty is a universal language. I mean, obviously skin types, and obviously in the US it's a big market with a lot of different skin types, skin tones. So we obviously have to cater more in different markets. Beauty is a universal language. Everybody always wants a quality product for a luxe for less price. So that's why the MCoBeauty brand has been so successful here in the US and soon to be the UK, and it will be beyond, because the brand has such gravitas and so many influencers and consumers that love what we stand for. I mean, obviously it differs slightly, but having that premium product at a luxury price is the luxe for less. I think is something that will never die.
There's a lot of talk, I think, among successful entrepreneurs and founders about listening to your gut instinct,
yes,
and then also following the data. How do you balance that, Shelley, the left and the right side of the brain, some might say?
I tend to go with more a gut feel and take a risk versus the data. Because we're leading a category that doesn't have data, we've had to go with a lot of gut feel. There wasn't a brand that accelerated like what we did. I mean, we went from pretty much 12 products to 100 products and, doing 6 million of sales to 100 million of sales in 3 years. So we led the category. We were the risk takers. We just had to go with intuition. Yes, we had some commercial decisions and commercial mistakes, but it really was driven by what our consumers wanted, a great team behind me and myself, leading what we believe the beauty category in Australia wanted and needed within MCoBeauty. So, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of risk-taking.
That capacity to take risks, not everyone has that. It's very scary. I imagine you have stared down some very terrifying moments where you're weighing things up. In terms of what it takes to be an entrepreneur or just a great business leader, do you think that having that steeliness to evaluate risks and then take them when necessary is critical?
I think it's critical.
What are some other qualities you think would be mandatory in someone working in business, not only beauty, but really entrepreneurial, but also running a company, whether they've founded it or not, as opposed to the things that might be nice to have, but not essential?
Look, I think I learned a lot by going into the world of ModelCo. I think it's really imperative that you know the industry and the category you're going into. I think it's really important that you surround yourself with other people that aren't just entrepreneurial minded. So some of my great assets within the business, they were strategic thinkers, finance people, sales people, legal, research, development. So really you as yourself having a passion for the category that you want to go into, having a huge in-depth knowledge of where the strengths and weaknesses are within that category. So for me, it was beauty, and I knew there was a weakness in the masstige category that women were crying out for affordable products. So I just innately knew that there was an opportunity there.
You don't seem like you have doubted your instincts. Is that right? Have there been moments where you've doubted yourself?
I think in the early years of my career, yes. I think once I'd hit hit the MCO Beauty times, I was pretty confident and I knew what not to do and what to do. It was almost like I did a degree in business with ModelCo and then I was ready to go with MCO. So it was a long road. It was 10 years of doing a degree in the beauty business until I actually got it right.
I always hate making successful women the spokesperson for their field because we don't do that to men. We don't talk to successful male founders and say, okay, you feel like you're being a great role model to other men in the industry, and do you mentor other men, and what's your advice to other men? Until we get to that day, though, it is still an unlevel playing field, and a woman that has had the sort of success that you have had in business is not the norm yet for female entrepreneurs. So I am going to be cliched and ask about some of the gender questions, Shelley. When you were first starting out, were there people that you looked to, particularly women in the industry, that had come before you?
Not really. I mean, there wasn't a lot in Australian beauty. When I went into the industry, it was off the back of what I think women wanted in the modelling industry and in their beauty bags. So all of the beauty brands were all international, global brands. There was, I think MAC was the coolest thing back then, and there was Estee Lauder, and there wasn't any boutique brands like there is today. Within a couple of years of running ModelCo, there were, once social media came out, there were celebrity-based and singer-based brands and influencer-based brands. And I remember going into Sephora, there was like 150 brands with Tan in a Can. By the time I exited ModelCo, there was 450 premium brands. There was Fenty, there was this one, that one. And every 5 minutes there was a new brand popping up. So when I started in the beauty business, it was very different than what it was. So I knew that the premium market was flooded. That was when I went, oh, over here, boutique brand, quality products in the mass market. So I saw a gap, but I'd spent so much time in this premium space struggling to keep up because you had huge global players, and LVMH, who owned Sephora, also owned Fenty, and it wouldn't matter how hard you tried, you're always at the back of the store because the giants were always at the front. So I learnt pretty quickly that the world of premium was never going to work for me. So that was when I pivoted and looked at mass.
It's obviously exhausting work. What sort of hours were you doing?
Oh, like around the clock.
Ever a day off, or weekends ever a thing?
Look, I am only where I am today because of friends. I'm only where I am today because of the great family network that I've had. So I had the two girls, Lucy and Emily, when I started ModelCo. I didn't spend any time at home with the girls. I was working around the clock, and that was because I passionately loved what I did, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without the family helping along the way. So it's definitely a team effort, yeah.
A lot of women that have experienced great success in business or other fields like politics will often say a variation of the line, you can have it all, but not all at once. Would you agree with that in terms of the eternal question about balancing things, as you were just saying that about with your two daughters? I guess then there are seasons of life where then you can put a different emphasis on different parts of your life. I think a lot of us relate to that in our own worlds and our own scales. Like, I'm all in on work at the moment, and then I'm going to try to read.
Yeah. Look, work-life balance is difficult. Anyone that says that they have a great work-life balance, I'm not sure I believe, as for me as a woman anyway. I found it very challenging, work-life balance, having great friends, great family. It's difficult. Plus, you've got this behemoth of a business that is almost, running you. You're not running it, and especially with MCoBeauty. I was fortunate when I started MCoBeauty. The girls are in their teenage years, coming close to finishing school, so they were more independent. Having older kids I found easier. I don't know how I would have coped with the acceleration of MCoBeauty with babies, but it is. Work-life balance is a challenge.
Sure is. I can only imagine at that level too. About, as you say, there was not really any women that you could look to when you were starting out because no one was doing that in the space.
That's right.
Then, of course, you showed what could be done. I imagine that a lot of people were reaching out to you for advice over the years. I assume that's true, first of all, is there is a bit of that line that we want to support other women, but also it's not a charity. You're not beholden as another woman to share all of your secrets, trade secrets with everyone.
No, I'm pretty open to that. I mean, look, I've been, where possible, I've tried to, I did a Forbes event, and I've done various other events before, encouraging women in business and giving them what was hard for me and the challenges that I've had and tips and tricks on how to get over that. So where possible, I've tried to mentor as many people as I can. Obviously, there's so many hours in the day, but I mean, I'm definitely open to talking to women, and where possible, I've tried to spend as much time as I can, because even if they take a snippet of what I tell them and it helps, I'm happy to help.
Do you think that the culture and the business landscape in Australia and globally, is it becoming more receptive and more supportive to female entrepreneurs and female founders, do you think? Because especially as successful women at scale become hopefully less of an anomaly.
Yeah, look, I think so. I think there's so many great women in business now. There is a lot of women's support groups, and there's a huge amount of support for women in business, and I help where I can. But I haven't really had anyone approach me and say, hey, I want to do what you do. It's more, how do you do what you do, and how do you fit it all in, and how do you have that work-life balance? So it's more tips around that, and is it really as easy as what it looks? So I give them the real version of the dirty laundry, so to speak, and how hard it was along the way.
Because it always looks much easier from the outside, and especially I think when you're working in industry like beauty, that seems very glamorous, doesn't it?
But behind the scenes, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. You are running a business and you're doing wholesaling and retailing and sales and supply chain and logistics and finance. So you're running a business, whether or not you've got a beauty product or a soft drink or a bottle of water. No matter what you're retailing, it requires all the same makeup in the background. So it is a challenge because people feel like it's glossy, just that the product is glamorous, but the back end's still the same.
Are there a couple of examples that might stand out about the moment? I think there's sometimes in a job like magazine publishing, for instance, that those moments that do play out how people would think, sitting with a celebrity front row at a fashion show, and then the moments that people would just never, ever imagine, where it's just really in the trenches of being in a print centre. Do you have a couple of extreme examples you could share? The glossiest version of your business life, and then the people you wouldn't even believe that time I was here, unpacking product from the bottom of the warehouse.
Yeah, I remember a couple actually. So when I launched Tan in a Can, I had this really great looking lid, like an actuator they call it, for delivery, and they didn't arrive in from France. So we had to literally put a WD-40 little nozzle on the can to make it happen, and it was so not glamorous, but the customers didn't even know. But the last minute rush, I mean, the amount of time, Sarah, that we've had products coming to market that have missed boats and ships, and labels weren't right on packaging. I mean, every day we troubleshoot issues, product development issues because of the regulations and quality that your products need to be at, the quality product testing, late shipments, marketing, social media that hasn't gone to plan, especially now with the dupes, making sure that the vernacular is right and the trademarks are right. So the troubleshooting that goes on behind the scene before a product actually hits the shelf is huge and very stressful. It looks glamorous, but it's stressful.
The reality is something else. Shelley, what is more difficult, launching the business, or then once it becomes successful, scaling it?
Scaling it, definitely. You have challenge around supply chain, warehouse distribution. The products that you see, Extend Lash Mascara, which is still our number one selling product, keeping up with the volume, the quality, making sure that the pack sizes are right, so then the retailers are backfilling the shelves to make sure there's product supply all the time. So the supply chain is a huge challenge for a business of scale. So, and that just the word supply chain actually requires a whole team of people to make sure that's right. So there's challenges within a growing business, and it's people and it's culture and it's making sure you've got the right team in the right departments. So it's hard. So it's rewarding but hard.
Let's go back then to February of this year when it was reported that it had been sold to DBG Health, valued at $1 billion. How long had you been thinking about that?
So I wasn't actually thinking of exiting the business. A friend of mine who was the COO at the time was looking, DBG's predominantly a pharmaceutical business, and they were looking to grow a beauty category. And I've known Sandy for many years, and he was a great operator, and I'd met Dennis, and they were in the middle of acquiring a couple of other beauty brands. And they obviously love the way we marketed, they love the quality of the brand, and it was accelerating. So a conversation started in, well, look, why don't we look to do something with you? And I was getting to a stage in life where the girls were getting older. I'd worked for 30 years and I just wanted a bit of a break. So it definitely wasn't something I was looking for, but it was more of a conversation that morphed into a great partnership. So DBG have been fantastic partners, and the reason I partnered with them was because they had deep roots into the pharmaceutical landscape in Australia, where we were predominantly discount department stores and grocery. So it was kind of like a match made in heaven. So we ended up doing a deal with DBG for them to acquire the business. So they acquired part of it a couple of years ago, and then the second part of it just recently. But they've been fantastic partners. They've expanded the brand into the US, into the UK, and I think they're going to go beyond. So it felt like a natural synergy.
Then those figures get reported, and everyone thinks, oh my gosh, $1 billion. What can you tell us about the reality of it? Because this is often reported something like that. People would assume that you've walked away with $1 billion.
I wish. Look, I think evaluation in any business, so the business could be valued at $1 billion, but evaluation is not what that's what the business is valued if whoever owns it today went and sold it today. But that's not necessarily a reflection on what the people that are exiting get. It's a bit like the Hailey Bieber question somebody asked me yesterday. Oh my God, Hailey Bieber going to be? Well, you don't actually know how the structure was of the deal, and everything's reported as glossy. But the brand is definitely accelerating. I mean, I think today the business is worth, with these guys running it, well over $1 billion, and it will continue to skyrocket. But evaluation is evaluation.
Even evaluation, it's a staggering figure to think that you built that in a very short amount of time. So we're only really talking about just before COVID here with MCoBeauty. It is a number that few of us can even get our heads around. How does it feel for you to think, wow, that's got to be, I don't even know what the words are for a reflection of something at that scale within such a short amount of time?
Look, it wasn't, I didn't set out to create a valuation of $1 billion. That was just what followed with the success of the brand. So we had well over 100 people working at MCo. The success of this brand today is driven by my family who were in the business that helped, and the team. So we all had a vision to create Australia's fastest growing beauty brand. We all as a team had a vision to create products that were providing women quality products at a less price. So as a team, we just drove those sales as hard as we could, and the fact that the valuation, it's a multiple of base earnings. So the beauty landscape and the beauty industry drives that valuation, not us. So, but I don't think any of myself, the family and the team ever thought beyond our wildest dreams that's what we create.
Because if you had even thought of it, even as you say in your wildest dreams,
yes, that definitely wasn't the driver.
At the same time that this massive deal was being negotiated and your personal life, your marriage was actually coming to an end. Obviously an extremely difficult time for anyone that's been through it. I've been through it myself. How did you navigate these two huge chapters of your life unfolding at the same time?
Look, Anthony and I are very close. It wasn't negative. We've been close for many, many years, so it didn't even play into a factor of that. Anthony was very much a part of the acquisition piece, but no, it definitely wasn't a challenge.
Are you somebody that feels like you can also sort of compartmentalize different parts of your emotions, or whether it's something to do with your daughters or something like that? Yeah. Is that a skill that you've always had?
You pretty much. I think to compartmentalise things in life helps you succeed, because you can't dwell in one area, otherwise it brings down another.
It's part of the resilience play, isn't it? I think it's part of the resilience toolkit. You are very comfortable always, I think, as you said, very open to talking to other women especially, but also here, like today with Stella, about the success of the brand. But then if your personal life is making headlines, that's not something that you seek. I don't think that's easy for any public figure, but certainly if it's not something that you've ever courted. How is that aspect of it then, having something like that splashed over news sites?
It wasn't a big deal. We just moved on. Like, it wasn't, I mean, it was so long ago now. That had no reflection on the business or anything to do with the sale.
I want to ask you about what life looks like now before we get to what happens next. We've spoken about your two daughters in their teenage years. How are they? They must be incredibly proud of you. And how are they feeling about things now that you've exited the business and this new chapter ahead?
Well, Lucy and Emily are great girls. They're both doing business at uni. I've always said, by year 9, Mum may be out of the business, we can spend more time together, but they're 19 and 18 now, so they finally got Mum back and, they've got their own lives, but they're very excited to have me around a lot more.
And I would imagine we talked a little bit about the challenges of the life balance and the amount of work you had to put into growing the business. But of course, I can't speak for them, of course, but they would also have seen such a fabulous role model because the role model that you have been for other women in business, of course, no much more so than for your own two daughters. Can I ask you a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I think I'm mum to them. I mean, they see some of the achievements, they see the brand. I think they're proud of the brand that myself and the team have created. And obviously, I don't think they really knew until maybe the last year or two just how powerful the MCoBeauty brand was, because they were all just getting into makeup back then. I would say they are incredibly proud. They know that it hasn't come without its dramas along the way. I mean, I've worked long hours and around the clock, so in some ways they've seen what I've given up to achieve what we've achieved now. So I think I think they are proud and they do understand. It's good that they're a little bit older so they actually can understand the full scope of everything.
As you say, you've been saying early on, by the time you're in year 9, like Mum will have exited the business. Now that you have, what are there some big holidays planned? Are there some sort of making up for lost time?
Well,
really?
yeah. Well, no, I'm going to, the girls are actually, one of them's going to Europe, so I'm going to meet her in Europe for a couple of days in Paris. Lucy went away last year and I went to meet her. So, look, it's all relatively fresh. Whilst the acquisition happened at the beginning of the year, I stayed on for a little bit longer to support the team. So I'm just kind of like newly kind of home all the time. And I've been between Sydney and LA, potentially working with CAA in America on some up-and-coming projects. But there's not really... I'm still looking at a number of things. There's nothing yet that I'm sinking my teeth into, but stay tuned.
I mean, it is exciting that you're splitting your time, and CAA, for our audience, that's Creative Artists Agency. We're one of the most famous agencies in the US. Can you give us a bit of a hint? Are you thinking something, another business, or are we going to see you on the big screen soon?
No,
one book?
I think very much behind the scenes. I think the opportunities will lie in business, working with talent and artists on some of their own brands, not just in the beauty space, but more fashion, looking at marketing expertise and working with CAA and talent on how they create their world and their brands.
You did mention, we talked about Hailey Bieber, who did sell her beauty brand Rhode recently for, again, a reported evaluation of $1 billion. I'm not sure if you know Hailey Bieber, but would you have any advice for her then, as she is also experiencing a similar exiting the business, and then what might she do next?
I'm not sure. I mean, what I know about Hailey, she has a great partner. I'm not so sure. Look, you never really know, again, valuations and deal structures. I don't know her deal structure. I don't know if it's an earn-out. I don't know if she's still involved. So it's hard to give advice as to to say what I'd say to her, because I don't know what the deal structure is. But we did work with Hailey. Hailey was a face of ModelCo. Hailey was a face of ModelCo for a minute. So she's a great girl who was very much, what I understand, very much involved in the product development. So that's a great brand. And I actually purchased some of their products a few times. So she's done a great job.
I have 2 final questions for you.
Yep.
One of them is there something that, if you haven't already, that you're going to splurge or treat yourself with after this mammoth year that you've had and the hugely successful deal that you've broken?
I wouldn't say splurge. I'd say just spend time with my daughters and the family that I haven't been able to do over many years.
A moment that money can't buy. I
yes.
love that. My final question was, I asked you a little bit about any moments that you might have doubted yourself, but also the difficult moments. As we're sitting here in the middle of 2025, what would you say to Shelley Sullivan, whatever the most difficult moment was in the course of your career, whether it was 6 months ago or 6 years ago? What would you say to her?
Look, definitely follow your instinct. You've got a lot of noise and a lot of people giving you advice along the way of what to do, what not to do, be it financial, strategy. Really sit with yourself and continue to follow your intuition, because it's moments where I didn't follow my intuition that things didn't work out.
Shelley Sullivan, congratulations on
Thank you,
everything.
Sarah.
It's been an amazing 25 years and an amazing 6 months. All the best for the months ahead. We will look forward to hearing a bit more about what happens in LA. Good luck with your commuting there. And you can follow Shelley Sullivan on Instagram. We have a link to your account in our show notes. Shelley Sullivan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.